Hello, my fellow animal lovers. How are you today? Before I ferry you to dreamland, if you love the content and you love animals, I want you to support the channel by subscribing. By the way, tell us where you are in the world. What time is it over there? I look forward to reading all your comments. Get comfortable. Your story is about to begin. Enjoy. Chapter 1: The Stillness of Form. In the quiet world between the land and the sea, in a shallow pool cupped in the rocks, there lives a creature of profound stillness. It is a sea anemone, a living being that looks so much like a flower that it was named for one. It is not a plant, but an animal, ancient and simple, a cousin to the drifting jellyfish and the patient, reef-building corals. It is a life lived in slow motion, a soft body anchored to a hard world, waiting. Its form is simple. A soft, cylindrical stalk rises from the rock, a column of gentle, yielding flesh. It has no bones to hold it upright, no shell to protect it. Instead, it is supported by the very water it lives in. It draws the ocean into its own body, filling its internal cavity, until the gentle pressure of the water inside holds its form, a perfect hydrostatic skeleton. It is a creature made of water, living in water, a soft shape held by the sea itself. Its body is a testament to yielding, to the strength found not in rigidity, but in softness. It sways with the currents, bending where a stiffer creature might break. It is a quiet lesson in how to be with the world, not against it. At its base, it has a single sticky foot, a part of its body called the pedal disc. This is its anchor, its connection to the world. With this foot, it holds fast to its chosen place on the rock, a grip that is both firm and gentle. This is its home, a small patch of stone in a tide pool that it may not leave for its entire life. And a sea anemone can live for a very long time. Some have been known to wait in the same spot, held by the same gentle foot, for 100 years, feeling the turn of the tides, the warmth of the sun, and the cool of the deep water over and over again. While it seems sessile, forever in one place, the anemone holds a quiet secret. If the world around it becomes too harsh, or if a predator threatens it, it can choose to move. It can slowly, deliberately release its grip, uproot itself from its home, and drift away on the currents, tumbling gently through the water until it finds a new place to settle. But it rarely does. It is a creature that chooses stillness. It chooses to remain, to wait, to receive what the world brings to it. Its stillness is not a limitation, but a preference, a deep and abiding patience. At the top of its soft column is its face to the world, a flat surface called the oral disc. In the very center of this disc is a single simple opening. This opening is both its mouth and its anus, a design of profound simplicity for a life free of complication. Through this one opening, it receives the gifts of the ocean, and through this same opening, it gently releases what it no longer needs. It is a cycle of receiving and letting go, all happening in one quiet place. And surrounding this center, like the petals of a flower, is its crown of tentacles. An anemone might have just a dozen, or it might have hundreds, a soft, waving garden that gives it its name and its beauty. They drift and sway with the slightest movement of the water, a slow, silent dance. These tentacles are painted in the soft colors of the sea. Some are a gentle green, others a warm, earthy brown. Some are touched with the palest pink or the softest lavender at their tips. They decorate the tide pool like a garden of wild flowers, each one a small jewel of life. These soft, waving arms are how the anemone feels the world. They are how it tastes the water. They are how it receives the nourishment that the tide will bring. They are a gesture of openness, a patient, beautiful waiting. The anemone is a creature of profound presence. Its soft, yielding body is a lesson in letting go, while its single, firmly attached foot is a lesson in being grounded and secure. It is both stable and soft, anchored and open, held safely in its place while it waits for the world to come to it. This is a peaceful way to be. It is a quiet state of being that allows the mind to settle, to cease its own drifting, and to find its own still point, its own safe anchor in the quiet darkness. Chapter 2: The Whispering World. The sea anemone does not perceive the world as we do. It has no eyes to see, no ears to hear, and no brain to process thoughts or memories. Its experience of the world is more direct, more holistic. It feels its small universe through a simple ancient system called a nerve net. This is not a single point of command, but a diffuse web of interconnected nerve cells woven throughout its entire body. There is one net in its outer layer of skin, the epidermis, and another in its inner layer, the gastrodermis. These two nets are connected, allowing the anemone to feel as one unified being. Because of this nerve net, the anemone can sense its environment from all directions at once. A touch on a tentacle on its left side is felt just as immediately as a touch on its right. A change in the water pressure on its column is registered without needing to be sent to a central processor. It is a state of pure, unanalyzed sensation. The anemone does not think about what it feels, it simply feels, and its body responds in a slow, coordinated dance. This simple nervous system is one of the very first to have evolved on our planet, a perfect design for a life of quiet, passive awareness. Though it has no eyes, the anemone is not blind to the world above the water. It can sense the difference between light and shadow. Deep within its simple form, it carries an internal clock, a circadian rhythm that connects it to the great slow cycle of day and night. It knows when the sun is high and when the world is dark. This sense of light is not for seeing, but for nourishing. As we will explore, the anemone carries a secret garden within it, and that garden needs the sun. Sometimes, anemone will slowly, almost imperceptibly, move its body, leaning or even detaching and reattaching its foot to find a place where the light filters down through the water more clearly. The light is a gentle, silent signal, a form of nourishment it can feel all over its body. The anemone's most profound sense, the one that connects it most intimately to its world, is the sense of touch. Its body, and especially its crown of tentacles, is covered in thousands of tiny invisible hair cells. These are not hairs as we know them, but delicate bundles of sensors that are exquisitely sensitive to the movement of the water. This is called mechanoreception. These tiny hairs feel the gentle press of the current as it flows through the tide pool. They feel the subtle shift in pressure as a wave washes overhead, and they can feel the tiny vibrations in the water made by a small creature swimming nearby. In a way, this is how the anemone hears the song of the water. It is a hearing based on feeling, on the direct physical touch of the world upon its skin. It is a deep and ancient sense. The very gene that helps to form these touch-sensitive cells in the anemone is a distant ancient relative of the gene that helps form the hair cells for hearing inside our own ears. The anemone can also taste the water. It does not have a tongue, but it has chemoreceptors scattered across its body that can read the chemical story of the ocean. It can distinguish between what is food and what is merely debris drifting by. If a piece of plain paper touches its tentacles, it may grasp it for a moment, but it will quickly release it, knowing it is not nourishment. But if that same piece of paper is soaked in the juices of a clam, the anemone will grasp it and draw it to its mouth because it tastes like a gift from the sea. This is a simple, direct knowing, a wisdom held in the body itself. This chemical sense is incredibly refined. The anemone can detect the faintest traces of life on the current. It can sense the specific chemical signature of the mucus that coats tiny swimming crustaceans, detecting compounds like N-acetylated sugars that drift from their bodies. These are the whispers of the tide, faint chemical messages that bring news of life moving through the water. And here, in the quiet world of the anemone, these senses are not separate. They are deeply, wondrously intertwined. When the anemone's chemoreceptors detect the faint taste of potential food in the water, it sends a signal through its nerve net. This signal does not tell the anemone to hunt or to move. Instead, it changes the anemone itself. The tiny, touch-sensitive hair bundles on its tentacles begin to physically change. They elongate, growing longer and more sensitive. This process is called tuning. The chemical taste of food tunes the anemone's sense of touch, making it more receptive to the specific, low-frequency vibrations made by swimming prey. The scent of food on the water is not just a piece of information, it is an instruction. It is the ocean whispering to the anemone, listen, listen for this particular song. The anemone does not have to think or decide or analyze. Its very body is taught how to listen by the world around it. It is a state of being that is purely responsive, purely passive. It is a state free from anxiety, free from striving. It is a state of perfect, peaceful attunement with the gentle, whispering world of the tide pool. Chapter 3: A Garden Within. Now, let us turn our focus from the world outside the anemone to the world within it, for this simple creature is not just one life, but a world unto itself. It is a living partnership, a quiet collaboration between animal and algae. Inside the anemone's own tissues, within its gastrodermal cells, lives a secret garden of microscopic, single-celled algae. These tiny organisms are a type of dinoflagellate called zooxanthellae from the genus Symbiodinium. They are not invaders or parasites. They are welcome guests, symbiotic partners living in a state of perfect silent harmony with their host. When the anemone takes these tiny algae into its body, it does not digest them. Instead, it wraps each one in a protective membrane, creating a tiny, safe pocket within its own cell called a symbiosome. Here, sheltered from the outside world, the algae can thrive. The anemone provides them with a safe house, protection from creatures that might eat them, and a constant supply of the simple things they need to live, like the carbon dioxide the anemone releases as it breathes. In return for this safe harbor, the zooxanthellae give the anemone a gift of profound importance, the gift of light. Like plants, these tiny algae can perform photosynthesis. They are filled with pigments that can capture the energy of the sun as it filters down through the clear water of the tide pool. They take this light energy and, using the carbon dioxide from their host, weave it into life. They produce sugars, glycerol, alanine, and other nutrients, creating a rich source of food from sunlight alone. And this food is not just for themselves. The algae are incredibly generous partners. They share most of the energy they create with their anemone host. In the anemone's close relatives, the corals, the zooxanthellae can provide up to 90% of the animal's total energy needs. This is not a small supplement, it is a primary source of life. This internal nourishment makes the anemone incredibly resilient and durable, able to survive even when the tide does not bring it much food to catch. It has a source of life that is constant, quiet, and comes from within. This inner garden is also the source of the anemone's beauty. The anemone's own tissues are often translucent and pale, but its symbiotic algae paint it with color from the inside out. The vibrant greens, the sunburst golds, the warm earthy browns, all of these hues come from the dense colonies of zooxanthellae living within its skin. The color of an anemone can even change with the seasons or the temperature of the water, as different types of algae with different pigments thrive in different conditions. The anemone is a living canvas, its colors reflecting the health and vitality of its inner world. The lives of the anemone and its algae are completely intertwined. Their destinies are bound together. The anemone will actively work to care for its inner garden, sometimes shifting its position on the rock to give the algae better access to the life-giving sun. But if the world becomes too stressful, if the water temperature rises too high for too long, this beautiful partnership can break down. Under stress, the anemone will expel its algae, pushing the tiny, colorful cells out of its body. This is a process called bleaching. The anemone loses its color, turning a ghostly white or pale translucent shade. It is not dead, but it is weakened and vulnerable, having lost its primary source of nourishment. It is a sign that the delicate balance of its world has been disturbed. This quiet, internal world of the anemone is a beautiful model for inner peace. In a world full of external demands and the need to constantly seek and strive, the anemone has a source of nourishment that is self-sustaining and comes from within. It is a quiet, passive process, depending only on the gentle light of the sun. This inner garden is a place of quiet abundance, a secret resource that is always there, providing energy and life regardless of the comings and goings of the world outside. It is a reminder that peace can be found not by chasing it, but by cultivating the quiet garden within ourselves, a place that can turn the simple light of awareness into profound and sustaining rest. Chapter 4: The Slow Dance of Neighbors. The sea anemone does not live alone in its rocky pool. It is part of a quiet community, a neighborhood of slow-moving, patient creatures who share the rhythm of the tides. As we gently widen our view, we can see these other lives, each moving at its own unhurried pace, contributing to the deep and peaceful harmony of this small world. There is no drama here, no conflict, only the description of different forms of placid existence, a slow dance of life in a pocket of the sea. Clustered on the rocks around the anemone are the barnacles. To a passing glance, they look like part of the stone itself, tiny, sharp volcanoes of white or gray. But they are not stone. They are living creatures, crustaceans, distant relatives of crabs and shrimp, who have chosen a life of complete stillness. As a larva, the barnacle swims freely in the ocean, but once it finds a suitable home, it glues its head to the rock with a cement so powerful it is one of the strongest natural adhesives known. It then builds its hard calcium shell around itself, a fortress with a small four-plated door at the top. When the tide is out and the rock is exposed to the air, this door remains tightly shut, holding a precious drop of seawater inside to keep the creature moist. But when the tide returns and covers the rocks with cool water, the little door opens. From within, the barnacle extends its delicate, feathery legs, called cirri. These legs form a beautiful basket-like fan, and the barnacle begins its slow, rhythmic dance. It sweeps this fan through the water again and again, a gentle combing motion that filters microscopic plankton from the current. This feeding motion is a constant, quiet pulse, a soft and repetitive gathering of what the water brings. The barnacle creates a gentle current of its own, drawing water in from the sides in quiet corridors, a flow so subtle that it does not startle its tiny prey. It is a life of patient, rhythmic filtering, clinging to the lower parts of the pool where the water almost always remains. We can see the sea stars. Their bodies, covered in a rough, spiny skin, are painted in the rich colors of the deep, deep purples, vibrant oranges, and soft, dusty reds. They seem motionless, but they are masters of a slow, flowing crawl. On the underside of each of their arms are hundreds of tiny, flexible tube feet, each tipped with a small suction cup. The sea star moves using water pressure. It pushes water into these tiny feet, causing them to extend and grip the rock. Then, by withdrawing the water, it creates a vacuum that holds it fast. Its movement is not a synchronized march, but a beautiful example of decentralized coordination. One of its arms becomes the dominant arm, pointing the way it wishes to go. This is the only command. The hundreds of individual feet then feel the pull and the push of their neighbors through the sea star's flexible body, and they begin to move together, a rippling wave of tiny steps that carries the entire creature forward. It is a slow, flowing dance, a liquid movement across the uneven surface of the rock, a perfect harmony of hundreds of small parts working as one. Scattered across the rocks are the snails and the limpets, the quiet grazers of the tide pool. We can see the periwinkles, their spiral shells moving at an almost imperceptible pace as they scrape the thin, invisible film of algae from the stone. They travel on a single muscular foot, their entire world the surface of the rock beneath them. Nearby are the limpets, whose low, cone-shaped shells seem to be fused to the rock itself. Each limpet has its own home scar, a specific spot on the rock that its shell has worn to a perfect fit over time. During the high tide, it will wander away from its home, grazing on algae, but as the tide recedes, it will always return to the exact same spot, settling into its custom-made resting place. It is a life of quiet routine, of knowing its place in the world, and weaving through and around all of these creatures is the swaying forest of the seaweeds. They provide the color, texture, and shelter that make the tide pool a true ecosystem. There are the bright, almost glowing green sheets of sea lettuce, so thin they are nearly translucent. There is the tough olive green rockweed, its fronds dotted with small, bubbly air bladders that act as tiny floats, lifting its leaves toward the sunlight. There are the delicate, feathery red algae, which look like soft silk floating in the water, and the hard, crusty coralline algae, which looks like a splash of pink paint spilled on the rocks, its body hardened with calcium. When the tide is out, these seaweeds lie limp and drooping, but when the water returns, they come alive, swaying and bending with the gentle motion of the water. They are not just scenery, they are a vital part of this community, providing food for the grazers and a safe place for small creatures to hide. Their constant, gentle, swaying motion adds to the lulling, hypnotic rhythm of the tide pool. Each of these neighbors, the filtering barnacle, the crawling sea star, the grazing snail, the swaying seaweed, moves with its own slow, repetitive rhythm. Together, their movements create a silent symphony of calm, an interconnected world where life proceeds at a gentle, peaceful pace. The listener, too, can join this slow dance, letting their own thoughts slow down to match the quiet, steady pulse of this underwater world. Chapter 5: The Breath of the Ocean. The entire existence of the sea anemone and its neighbors is governed by one great, slow, and powerful rhythm, the turning of the tides. This is the breath of the ocean, a cycle of exhale and inhale dictated by the silent, distant pull of the moon and the sun. Twice each day, the ocean draws back, and twice each day, it returns. This rhythm is so fundamental, so predictable, that it shapes every aspect of life in the tide pool. Let us now settle in and feel this great breath, this slow two-part meditation of the sea. First comes the slow exhale, the ebbing of the tide. The change begins subtly. The ocean, which had been pressing against the shore, begins to retreat. Each successive wave that washes in is a little smaller, a little weaker, reaching just a little less far up the rocks. The world begins to quiet down. The deep, resonant sound of waves lapping against the shore softens. It is replaced by the gentle sound of trickles and drips, as the water that was pushed high into the crevices of the rocks now begins to run back out, finding its way back to the sea. The overall sound of the world becomes hushed, more intimate. As the water level drops, the anemone's home is transformed. What was once just a small depression on a submerged rock now becomes a distinct separate body of water, a tide pool, isolated and left behind by the retreating ocean. For a time, it is its own small world, a temporary island of sea on the newly exposed shore. As the water continues to recede, the anemone feels a profound change. Its body, which has been submerged and supported by the water, is now exposed to the open air. It feels the warmth of the sun on its skin, a sensation it only knows during these hours of low tide. It feels the gentle touch of the wind. To a creature made of water, this exposure is a challenge. The air and the sun can dry it out, a process called desiccation. To protect itself, the anemone performs a slow and deliberate action. It begins to pull its beautiful crown of tentacles inward. The soft petal-like arms fold down, retracting gracefully toward its central mouth until they disappear entirely from view. The anemone closes itself off from the outside world, becoming a soft, wet, glistening lump on the rock, holding the precious seawater it needs deep within its body. It is a state of quiet endurance, of patient waiting. Its world has become smaller, stiller. It holds its breath, in a way, and waits for the ocean's return. The turning point is just as subtle as the beginning of the retreat. Far out, the great ocean has reached its lowest point, and now the invisible pull of gravity begins to draw it back. A distant wave pushes just a little farther up the shore than the one before it. The slow inhale has begun. The first sign of the returning tide in the rock pool is a sound, a soft gurgle, a gentle lapping as the first small fingers of a wave find their way over the rocky rim of the pool and spill inside. The water that was lost begins to be replenished. Slowly, steadily, the water level in the pool begins to rise. The anemone, still closed and waiting, feels the cool water begin to cover its body once more. It feels the change in pressure as the water deepens, a gentle, familiar weight that signals the return of its true element. It is the feeling of being held, of being safe, of being home. Once it is fully submerged, the anemone begins to open. Slowly, gracefully, it unfurls its tentacles, blooming once again in the cool, clear water. Its flower-like crown expands to its full glory, its soft arms swaying gently in the newly moving water. The tide pool is no longer an isolated pond. It is reconnected to the vastness of the ocean. Fresh, cool seawater, rich with oxygen and microscopic life, washes over everything, cleansing and renewing the small world. The sound of the world returns to the deep, steady, rhythmic lapping of the waves against the shore. The world is whole again. The ocean has taken a full, deep breath. This great, slow cycle of the tide is like the cycle of sleep. The retreat of the ocean is like the process of falling asleep, a slow withdrawal from the world, a turning inward to a place of quiet stillness. The return of the tide is like the deep, restorative phase of sleep, an immersion in a state of peace and renewal, where the body and mind are bathed in tranquility and made whole again. It is a natural, inevitable rhythm, a gentle, powerful force that promises rest and rejuvenation. Chapter 6. The Gift of the Tide. The high tide has returned. The anemone's pool is once again part of the vast, breathing ocean. The water is cool and clear, filled with the promise of life. The anemone itself is fully open, its crown of tentacles unfurled like a blooming flower, swaying gently in the soft currents. It is not hunting, it is not searching, it is simply being, in a state of patient, open readiness. Its life is one of opportunistic feeding. It does not pursue, it only receives. It will accept whatever gifts the tide brings its way, a tiny drifting plankton, a small crustacean, a muscle knocked loose from its mooring on the rock, or even a single fish bone settling down through the water. It is not selective. It waits for the ocean to provide. A tiny organism, a speck of life almost too small to see, drifts on the current. It is a copod, a minuscule crustacean, and its journey is guided not by its own will, but by the gentle, invisible movement of the water. The current carries it toward the anemone, into the soft, waiting garden of its tentacles. It brushes against one of the soft, lavender-tipped arms. The touch is impossibly light, a contact so faint it is almost nothing, but the anemone feels it. The tiny hair-like sensors on the surface of the tentacle register the physical contact, the mechanical stimulus, and at the same moment, the chemoreceptors on the tentacle taste the chemical signature of the copod's body. The two signals, touch and taste, arrive at once. Deep within the skin of the tentacle lies the anemone's silent, coiled secret. Here, there are thousands of microscopic capsules called nematocysts. Each one is a marvel of miniature engineering, a hollow, barbed thread coiled tightly like a spring and held under immense osmotic pressure. It is a tiny biological harpoon waiting patiently for a single specific moment to be released. It is not a weapon of aggression, but a tool of reception, a mechanism for accepting the gifts of the tide. The combined signal of touch and taste is the key. When both are present, the trigger is pulled. In an instant, so fast it is beyond our perception, hundreds of these nematocysts fire. The coiled threads evert, turning inside out with explosive force, and shoot into the body of the tiny copod. They pierce its shell and inject a minute amount of a paralyzing neurotoxin. The process is completely silent, an instantaneous, reflexive action. The copod is subdued, held fast against the tentacle. The gift has been received. Now a slow and graceful dance begins. The tentacles nearest to the captured morsel begin to bend inward, moving with a deliberate, unhurried grace. They work together, a soft, coordinated embrace, to guide the tiny speck of food from the outer edge of the crown toward the center of the oral disc. The anemone's single, simple mouth opens to receive the offering. The tentacles gently push the food inside, into the anemone's central gastrovascular cavity. The process of digestion is as quiet and simple as the rest of the anemone's life. Strong enzymes within the cavity begin to break down the soft tissues of the prey, a process that can take as little as 15 minutes for a small animal. The nutrients are absorbed directly into the anemone's body. Later, any parts that cannot be digested, a tiny piece of shell, a fragment of bone, will be just as gently and slowly expelled from the same opening through which they entered. The cycle is complete. The anemone's tentacles unfurl once more, returning to their state of open, patient waiting. It has been nourished. It has received a gift from the tide. This entire process, from the first light touch to the final, quiet digestion, is an act of pure passive reception. The anemone does not strive or struggle. It simply waits and accepts. It is the ultimate act of letting go. This is the final, gentle lesson of the sea anemone. The gift of sleep, like the gift of the tide, cannot be hunted or forced. It must be received. It comes when we cease our striving, when we let go of our efforts and simply allow our bodies and minds to be held by the quiet, restorative darkness. Like the anemone, we can open ourselves to this gift, allowing the slow, gentle embrace of rest to draw us inward to a place of deep, peaceful nourishment. The tide of sleep is coming in. There is nothing to do but let it wash over you. There is nothing to do but rest. Hello, my fellow animal lovers. How are you today? Before I ferry you to dreamland, if you love the content and you love animals, I want you to support the channel by subscribing. By the way, tell us where you are in the world. What time is it over there? I look forward to reading all your comments. Get comfortable. Your story is about to begin. Enjoy.